Today I'm testing out this $4 watercolor tin set from Dollarama. I'm very happy with the purchase overall because I bought it mostly for the tin. The tin is incredibly useful to put my own half and full pans that I put my own watercolor and gouache in as a holder. In addition to paying $4 basically for a tin, I get a free water brush, paintbrush, and pencil, which are all of very high quality, and I'm very glad to get them. Overall, it's definitely worth the $4 for these four things. However, it is definitely not worth it for the watercolors themselves. The watercolors themselves, as I guessed, are of terrible quality, just like the previous tin I purchased from Dollarama that looked very similar. I believe they're definitely dye-based, but also their composition is extremely odd. It takes an awful lot of water to get them to be able to reactivate at all. You need to let them sit for a bit. But rather than working like proper and lovely gouache or working like nice transparent watercolor, they work terrible. They're goopy, they're strange, they have very fast fall off, and they're almost certainly not light fast. Although some of the colors themselves are a bit pleasant, working with them is entirely horrible. In order to give them the best shot that I possibly could, I used my 100% cotton Strathmore 500 paper, a 90-pound variety, but I don't have any paper of higher quality than this. Technically speaking, it's the highest quality watercolor paper I possess. However, even on this, the best paper possible, these paints were terrible to work with. They do look a little better on this paper than any other paper, however, and they are definitely very interesting. But like the previous strange small tin of watercolors I purchased that were more of a square-shaped palette, these paints are very odd. It also seems to dig very deeply into the watercolor and they get used up quickly. It's a strange texture I can't properly describe that's very unpleasant to work with, although some of the colors look better than others. As I said, working with them is very unpleasant. However, I wanted to do the best I possibly could with these paints. I ended up deciding to do a little bit of a test page here. Originally, my plan was to do a full painting with these paints afterwards, using only the supplies here, so the water brush, the paintbrush that comes with it, the pencil, and all the watercolors, but on the best possible paper. The reason why I decided to actually just do the moth you're about to see is because the paints were just that terrible. I didn't really want to waste any more of my best possible paper with them. So I got a reference of a nice public domain image of a moth, and I decided I'm just going to paint this right here at the bottom of the swatches, so I only waste one sheet of paper on this terrible, terrible paint. You can make the best of a bad situation, but there's also sometimes when you need to admit the quality of the supplies just is too subpar to really be worth your time. I'm not really planning on using these watercolors again, but like I said, the pencil, the two paintbrushes, one being a water brush, and the tin itself are what I felt was worth my $4. The tin itself, I was afraid, had a hole in it, but it's actually a plastic window, which is perfect for me. Still, trying to make the best of a bad situation, I take out an empty palette here so I can water down the paints to try to get a little bit of a nice wash. I work with them a little thicker than I would with a pure watercolor and try to use them more like, as I called the previous tin, gouache colors. So I'm trying to use them like a mix between watercolor and gouache. However, even trying to use them like gouache is terrible because proper gouache actually goes on thickly and lovely and layers nicely. These do not work well. I'm not sure exactly how they were made or why they were made this way, but they are truly the worst watercolors I've ever used in my life, completely tied with those other Dollarama watercolors that I believe are the exact same formulation, just a smaller selection of colors and put into a square palette. I really, truly cannot possibly describe to you how unpleasant these are to work with and how much I advise you never ever use them. They worked better on this paper than the previous papers I'd tested out the other watercolor set on. However, this is the best possible paper, and it still is a horrible experience. I tried to do the best I could, and the final result is actually something I'm proud of, but at the same time, it wasn't fun to do. But in order to make the best of a bad situation, you still have to power forward. I'm definitely probably, well, unless it's for a specific art challenge, I'm not going to use these paints ever again. They're just too bad to use. But I really should remind myself that I should be using all kinds of different papers I have. I keep relying on the cheapest papers out of some sort of stubbornness and a desire to save money, but I do have a lot of better surfaces that I should also be encouraging myself to use, especially because I've been saving up paper for many years, and it would make a lot more sense to actually use what I already own, and to remember that I should be investing in paper, not just other supplies. In general, the black was pretty dark, which was nice to get the eye spots contrast on this, and I was able to forcefully make the paint work for me to get a certain amount of layered color details, and because it was more milky and gouache-like than a true watercolor, I was able to get it to look more actually like the moth, because the quality of the way this moth looked was more like it would be depicted well in gouache. It looked more milky and opaque than something that would be glowing and translucent like traditional watercolors. So here's the final moth. Hope you think it looks okay. Once again, that's all for this video. If you like my videos, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell to all notifications so you will know when a new video comes up. I aim for new videos every Wednesday, but sometimes life happens and things are delayed. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you with another one very soon. Bye!